Yeah, we're just waiting for some people to come in, and we're going to put some links in the chat room. In the meantime, and the first link is the Akanfo Nanasom page, and there are a number of links on that page also. Okay. Okay. Go back up to the page. Okay, so Yechirimo Yedase once again for joining this new course. 1 second. Okay, so this is a new course. We have done some broadcasts on Akanfo Nanasom and different aspects of it, but we wanted to address and give a proper analysis of Akanfo Nanasom, ancient authentic Akan ancestral religion, while we utilize that terminology, and give proper definitions with regard to the nature of Nyamewa and Nyame, the great mother and great father, supreme being, the Abosom, the deities, the Nananom Nsamanfo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, nature of the Okra, soul, divine consciousness in relationship to Nyamewa Nyame, the Abosom, the Nsamanfo, as well as matriclan, patriclan, divinities, and so forth, and our culture as it's moved through different areas. So, hold on 1 second. Somebody was trying to get in. Put this back. Give me 1 second. Just have to send this link out. Somebody was trying to get inside the chat room. Okay. Okay, so we want to give these proper definitions and get into some detail about how the tradition has been preserved in our ancestral religious practices in the Western Hemisphere, and how we're to build on that foundation from a pure, authentic perspective, because there's so much corruption of the tradition, whether it's on the continent of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, or in the Western Hemisphere by individuals who are either from the continent, who brought corruptions of the tradition, influenced by Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, white culture in general, the fake religions, white culture in general, as well as individuals from here, the Western Hemisphere, who have traveled to or are connected with individuals on the continent, have returned, brought a corrupted tradition, and have been promoting that as the Akan ancestral religious tradition. And then people have embraced that corruption, assuming that was the real deal. So we need to get to purification on both sides of the equation. So this is the link, And by the way, so also, as we said before in the previous courses, recently, Zoom has been having some issues, intermittently having some issues with video uploading, or the clarity of the video or sharpness because of so many people using the Zoom platform during this quarantine. So if you have any issues with the sound or the images, just let me know in the chat room and we can work that out. In the playback, when you get the video recording, typically the images come out clear. Okay, so this is the Akanfo Nanasom page, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion. So, and we utilize that terminology to distinguish what we have been doing and the information we've brought forth. So, this is imagery from the Ankh, from the tomb of Tutankhamen. But then, of course, we have the Obeah figure, which is the Ankh from ancient Khanit and Kamit. We've continued to utilize that ritual talisman. These are divinities from ancient Khanit, Nubia. So we talk about Akanfo. That term in the Twi language of the Akan means Akan people. Fo meaning a plurality as in a group. So Akanfo means Akan people. Akan ni means an individual, ni, to be, ni, Akan. So Akan ni is an Akan individual. Akanfo is the group of people, fo, who are Akan. So Akanfo in the Twi language of the Akan means Akan people. Akanfo originated in ancient Khanit, Nubia, also called Knesset, ancient Nubia, at the beginning of human existence upon Asase, Earth. This is the region of contemporary Sudan and South Sudan, in the eastern region of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, some will say north, but northeastern. We eventually migrated around the world. Some Akanfo migrated north of Kemet, to Khanit, Nubia, to settle ancient Kemet, Egypt, while others remained in Khanit. Over the millennia, Akanfo migrated to West Afuraka, Afuraitkait, West Africa, establishing the ancient civilization of Akana or Akara, which is Ghana. Some Akanfo were also a component of the Kanem Empire, the pre-Bornu Empire, the original authentic Black Berber Empire, or Berber or Bri, as it's pronounced in Akan, Ebi Fo, and so forth, the term that we use to identify ourselves as Black people, and the Kong Empire, which is in the region of Ivory Coast and so forth. Went to these areas before ultimately migrating to and settling in the areas of contemporary Ghana, today's so-called Republic of Ghana, and Ivory Coast. So today in Ghana, there are about 12 million or so, between 11 and 12 million or so Akan people in the region. In Ivory Coast, around 8 or 9 million that they're averaging the number. So at this point, it's between 20 and 22 million Akan people between Ghana and Ivory Coast. One of the largest ethnic groups on the continent, period, including in the western part of the continent. Now, during the Mmusuo Kese, which we call the Great Perversity, Kese means great, Mmusuo means misfortune, evil, wicked, and so forth. So the Great Perversity, the Great Evil, the enslavement era, the Akan ethnic group, as today comprised one of the largest ethnic groups, and this is why many of us were forced into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Mmusuo Kese enslavement, and this is how we ended up in these regions. So let's look at some first corroboration for that. We are going to go to, I'll pull up this image. Now, what we're going to look at is a document and entries from 2 different dictionaries just to corroborate. This is incidental corroboration of what we're talking about. The hieroglyphic dictionary, many people have, published by Budge back in the early so-called 1900s and so forth. And then you have the Asante and Fanti, the dictionary of the Asante and Fanti language called Twi by Chris Dollar, who first published it in around 1881. Then there's a second edition that came out in 1933. So you have a missionary, the Basel Evangelical Missionary Society, a Swiss missionary in the forests of what is today's Ghana, sitting with people trying to, they wanted to translate the Bible into the Tree language. So first they had to learn the Tree language. So they're sitting with our people, learning the Tree language and so forth, compiling a dictionary, and then they use that to translate the foolish doctrine of Christianity into the Tree language to try to control the minds of our people. So you have a missionary in the late so-called 1800s sitting in the forest in Ghana, gathering, what is the word for dog? You know, we say dog in English, what do you call this animal? We say cat in English, what do you call this animal? We say mountain in English, what term we use to reference that? So they're gathering all these different terms. It's over 600 pages. It's the most extensive tree dictionary out even today. And it has terms that were used in the late 1800s that were becoming obsolete at that point, that many Akan people don't speak today because certain terms have become obsolete. So you have all the various terms people speak now, plus some terms that were used a couple hundred years ago, or over 120 plus years ago, or 40 years ago, but that were becoming obsolete at that point. So you have ancient terms as well as, you know, the terms that are used now. So these are two different groups, two different studies. One person in the forest in Ghana trying to force Christianity. Then you have somebody in England and so forth, and going back and forth to Kemet, so-called Egypt, studying hieroglyphs and so forth, and compiling a dictionary for that. Now, the reason we show that is because we want to show some corroboration from our article. And this particular article, you'll see the link in the chat room. That second link in the chat room. Now, we compiled this as part of an ongoing work. And this short article is Akan vocalizations of our ancestral language of Kemet. So when we talk about Akan people being from ancient Khanit and Kamit, of course, we have the same deities, but also speaking the same language, possessed by the same divinities, and so forth. So just to give evidence of that, we use a comparison of the so-called hieroglyphic dictionary entries with the Asante Fanti dictionary entries. So for example, you see in ancient Kemet, the term is written, it's really KS. This is the symbol for the K sound and the S sound. When they don't know the vowel placement, it's conventional in Egyptology to stick an E in between consonants just to facilitate pronunciation, even though if it's spelled KS, the symbol for the K, which is the bowl, and this line, the bolt, horizontal line for the S, it's spelled KS, but they don't know if it's should be an A in between, or an I, or O, or U, and so forth. So they will stick an E arbitrarily in between consonants just to facilitate pronunciation. The term kes in the Coptic dialect, the late Kemet dialect, that came into usage about 2,000 years ago, the final stage of the language, you'll see is K-A-C, K-E-C, kes, to chatter foolishly, to jest. When we look in the Asante Fanti dictionary to compare, we have a term in Akan, in Tree, kasa, to talk much, talk noisily, to chatter, to dispute, to wrangle, and so forth. So this kes, or kes is pronounced in Coptic, to chatter foolishly, to jest, is the same kasa, to talk much, talk noisily, to chatter. So we have the same term, and we have the same and the proper vocalization. We continue to speak the language, so we don't need the E in between. We know that it's an A in between, and it's kasa, instead of kes, it's kasa, same word, same definition. Crossing thousands of years and thousands of miles. You have the term in ancient Khanit and Kamit, hem. Once again, it's HM, but they don't know the vocalization, so they stuck an E in there. Even in Coptic, they'll put the H and M, HM, to roar, to bellow. Then hemet, a cry, roar, bellow, battle cry. Look in the Akan language, hama, double reduplicated, boisterous, and then you have the sea rages as when agitated by a storm, raging. So hem meaning to roar, to bellow, making the loud cry and so forth, roar, bellow, battle cry. A battle cry is a loud, raging cry. So when they say, as an example, the sea rages, as if agitated by a storm or raging, and being boisterous or loud or bellowing, that's hem in ancient Kemet, that's hama in Akan. You have the term kai, but then it's also ka in this representation ka, and this representation kai. The two strokes here is the I sound, so kai or ka. So whether it's ka or kai, to think out, to devise, meditate, to speak, to repeat, to say, to cry out, to tell out. Then in Akan, ka, to emit a sound, to utter, speak, say, tell. So one of the reasons we use these two dictionaries juxtaposed to one another is not only are they using the same words with the same meanings, but even the descriptive of the way they write the term when they're describing the terms in their language. If someone in England is saying, well, this set of symbols, medutu, with the ka, a, e sound, the kai sound, or ka sound, to speak, to say, to tell, and then someone in the forest talking through the Akan is saying the sounds ka, mean to speak, to say, to tell. They even use the same, descriptive definitions to describe the term. You have the term sha or shay, to fix, to appoint, to decide, to determine, to destine, to predestinate, to allot in Kemet. In Akan, the HY combo is the shet, similar to the SH, shet in Akan. So shet and shay, or shat and shay, is shet in Akan. What does that mean? It can be mean to put, to set, fixed, and so forth, but to fix, to set up, to institute. And related definitions, to set, to constitute, to appoint, to crown, but also to predestinate, appoint, to ordain beforehand. Here you have shet, to fix, to appoint, to predestinate, to ordain. So now we're getting into these detailed definitions. It's not just something arbitrary like if you hear the term ma or mama, that means mother, and you say, oh, well, it's the same language because both languages have mama for mother. You can find that all around the world. But you're not going to find she, meaning to fix, to appoint, to predestinate, which is a very specific definition for something cosmological. Then you look in the Akan language and you look for shet, and it means to predestinate, to ordain, to fix and appoint. And even once again, using the terms to appoint, to predestinate, to ordain in the hieroglyphic dictionary, and somebody in the forest hearing shet saying, oh, that means to predestinate, to fix, to appoint, to ordain. Then you have ari, the eye. You have two versions of that. To eye, also a seeing, a looking, a look, a glance. Ari, and also an in Kemet with the symbol of the eye to turn a glance towards something. In Kemet, in Akan, ani or inni, the eye or eyes, but then you also have the definition, a look. So you have both definitions. Ari, the R's are rolling R's, so instead of arit, it's ari. And you also have an or ani. In Akan, you have ani once again. In ancient Kemet, you have ban, meaning to be evil, to be wicked. In Coptic, is ban, to be evil, to be wicked. In Akan, you have bane, bad, evil, wicked, and related definitions and so forth. Hold on one second. Let me, someone was trying to get into the class. Send this link out real quick. And of course, if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat room. Just need to okay. All right. So just to get back to that. Oh, that's the wrong one. So we were on, okay. So we were on, so once again, we have ma, in Khanit and Kamit, a conjunction also used as an imperative, grant, give. And you see the forearm with the forearm here with the hand, open palm, and a loaf of bread in a triangular cone shape to give and so forth, to give, to grant, ma. Then you have in Akan, ma, meaning to give, hand, communicate, bestow, confer, impart, grant. And even when you say hand to hand, we show the arm with the forearm and the open palm, as well as, you know, the open palm with the cone of bread and so forth, to give, as well as to grant, as well as to hand, and literally pointing out the hand. So the Akan definition not only uses give and grant, just like you see in the hieroglyphic dictionary, but also to hand, describing the hieroglyph that we utilize. So that's just an example. And then we also use the term, there are a couple of different terms, TWRA, or DWR, Jira, which in Akan means purification, as in Ojira, purification. To dash or strike against, spatter or sprinkle, to cleanse from guilt or moral religious uncleanness. Ojira means purification. It also means a ceremony of purification when you jira or cleanse. Use the ajira leaf dipped in water to cleanse the okra, the soul, the divine consciousness, through the agency of cleansing the head and so forth. So jira means ritual cleansing, purification, cleansing, and to celebrate that ceremony of purification. The Akan New Year, you say Ojira, the yam custom, an annual festival celebrated in the month of August or September when the first yam is eaten, being considered also the beginning of a new year. Chwa Jira, to celebrate the yam festival. So the Ojira festival is the new year, and it's about purification, the beginning of a new year, the end of one cycle, the beginning of a new, and it's about purification. But then ritually, individually, it's about to cleanse from guilt, moral, religious uncleanness, utilizing that ajira leaf to purify the head, ritual purification. Then you have the term jira in ancient Khanit and Kamit, to be clean, to cleanse, to purify, to celebrate a ceremony of purification, purify. We know what the celebration of purification is, the ceremony of purification. So when we look at a text like this, and it says to be clean, to cleanse, we know jira means to cleanse because we cleanse our kra every once a week at least on our kra day, our soul day, and we utilize that water ritually to purify or cleanse our head, to engage the jira process, or the ahojira self-purification process. But then we also have the new year, which is called Ojira for many Akan people, and that's a cleansing of the entire Oman, the entire nation. So when jira says to purify, but also to celebrate a ceremony of purification, in Akan it means the same thing, but we know what the ceremony of purification is. And Egyptologists couldn't tell you what is the ceremony of purification called jira, what are they talking about? They can't give you that information, but we can because we still utilize that. And it continued in the Hoodoo tradition as well. So So we give that information to corroborate and prove exactly what we're saying in this first portion of the Akanfo Nanasom page. They're not just arbitrary terms and so forth. And as we complete, that's just a section or a segment of a larger work where we're going to have a full comparative dictionary of the Akan language and the language of ancient Khanit and Kamit, proving with thousands of, terms, showing every root term you find in the Akan language you will find in the Metutu, in the hieroglyphic dictionary. Meaning you can go to a hieroglyphic dictionary, you can look at a term, and before you even look in the Akan book, you already know that that term is going to be in the Akan dictionary with the same definition. Even before you look in the dictionary, you know it's going to be there because it's the same language. So now we utilize the term Nanasom, and we utilize that terminology. Specifically, this is a term that there are two terms, Nana and Som, in the Akan language. And we combine those two as a descriptive of ancestral religion. There's a reason why we utilize that terminology. The title Nana carries great weight, even divine qualities in Akan language. Thus, only those who have demonstrated their worthiness of this title are properly addressed as such. Fundamentally, they have become part of a divine community after having attained a certain level of spiritual cultivation. So a spiritually cultivated elder or elderess is called Nana, male or female. Plural is Nananom. So the Nananom Mpanyinfo is the spiritually cultivated elders and elderesses. When they transition, they become Nananom Nsamanfo, the Nsamanfo ancestral spirits who are Nananom, part of that ancestral community who are spiritually cultivated. So Nana is an honorific title, but not just for people. It's first and foremost an honorific title for the Great Mother and Great Father Supreme Being. Nana Nyame, Nana Nyamewa is used as a title for grandmother or grandfather and so forth. It's an honorific title. So and the various abosom, Nana Bena, Nana Abena, Nana Awusi, Nana Nyonkompon, all the various divinities, that honorific title is attached to them and so forth. Now, we say the term Nana is a reduplication of Na in the Akan language, in the Tree language. The root Na is defined as that which is rare, precious, ancient, ancestry, great. So let's look at that as well. So when we look in the Santi Fanti dictionary, we find that the term, Na, scarceness, scarcity, rareness, rarity, want, lack, defect, and so forth. Rareness or value arising from scarcity, costliness, preciousness, importance. So one that is something that is precious and valuable, like a precious mineral, a precious stone and so forth, because it's very rare. You have those who are spiritually cultivated, who live in harmony with divine order, aligning every thought, every intention, every action, every moment of every day with divine order without profaning themselves, without compromise and so forth. That's rare when people grow into and crystallize into that function. So you have a small community of individuals who can utilize that title, that honorific title. They earn that title, Nana. The root is Na, which is reduplicated, scarce, rare, precious, because of that scarcity and so forth, sacred value. And of course, it's also those people who are endowed with additional energy, Tumi, divine power, to assist us in our development on earth. They are endowed with the power and the responsibility of, by Inyame, the Great Mother and Great Father Supreme Being, with increased Tumi or power to assist us because they've elevated to that level of development. So you also have Na, meaning relationship, ancestors and so forth, ancestry, genealogy. Na So it has to do with ancestry. It has to do with that which precious, rare, scarce, great, and only the great ones, the divinities, Nana Nyamewa, Nana Nyame, the Nananom, Abosom, Nyina, all of the divinities, and the Nananom Nsamanfo can utilize that title. Now we look back to our page, we find that the term Na in Akan means great, greatness. And then you also have Nanu, which means good, beautiful, beautiful meaning an expression of divine harmony, the manifestation of divine order. So beauty is simply an expression of harmony. So you have divine order, everything in creation unfolds according to that pre-existent pattern, manifest through divine order. And if you have something that reflects divine order consistently without profaning it, then that's what beauty is. It's an expression of the divine harmony manifest in creation. So, Na, great, greatness, the related term Nanu, beautiful, an expression of divine order and so forth. Nanu also means grains. Also grains and seeds and so forth. So you have that terminology. Now we have the term, you said the term som means a deed or undertaking, a custom or practice to ritually provoke, to ritually place offerings on an altar. And you have some, it's really SM as is written in the hieroglyphs and so forth, Medutu, but a deed or undertaking, action, custom, som to pile offerings upon an altar. Now let's go back to the hieroglyphic, the Akan dictionary. And when we come to the Akan dictionary, we look for the term som. And you find the term som, meaning to serve, a master, a king, God, here he says, or an idol or fetish, meaning a divinity, to be a servant or a subject. This is why some utilize the term, if they say, what is the Akan, what's the name for Akan religion? Some Akan people utilize the title Unyame Som, meaning to serve Som Unyame. So they utilize that terminology, Unyame Som. Some will say Abosom Som, to serve Som, the Abosom, to serve the deities. But that's something that that's just a descriptive title of what people engage in. Some simply call the tradition Akom. Akom means possession. It means the same thing in ancient Khanit and Kamit. But some utilize the term, hey, Akan Ancestral Religion is simply utilize the term Akom, because we get possessed by the Supreme Being, the Great Mother, Great Father, through the agency of the divinities and ancestral spirits. Spirit possession takes place, and the divinity of creation manifests through the person who's possessed. They become a vessel, a vehicle for that divine order to enter into the Afuraitkait human sphere, communal sphere. So the Akom possession, dance, as well as ritual invocation and so forth, they'll just call the entire tradition Akom, meaning spirit possession, communication with the divine through spirit possession. So that's a term that people use. But some decided to start using the term Unyame Som, to serve Som Unyame, or Abosom Som, to serve Som the Abosom. This is the reason why, and you also see service, servitude. You have Osomfo, one of the people folk who engage in service. That's a ritual title as well. So this is why we utilize the terminology. If we're talking about serving a divinity, a king, a divinity, and so forth, This is why we were directed by the Enslavement to utilize the term som. It's a deed or undertaking from ancient Khanit and Kamit. It's talking about serving a deity, serving a king, but service, som. Looking at the ancient Khanit language and Kamit language, we have the same notion, a deed or undertaking. What kind of deed or undertaking? An action or custom. What kind of action, custom, deed, or undertaking? Then you have some, to pile offerings upon an altar. That's the deed, that's the custom, that's the undertaking, that's the service. Placing offerings on an altar, you're serving some, the divinities. So the same term, som, in Khanit and Kamit, is the same term, som, with regard to ritual service to a divinity in the Akan language. So this is why we use the term Nanasom as opposed to Nyame Som. Of course, if they were going to say Nyame Som, they should be saying Nyame Wa, Nyame Som. So that's a way to talk about ancestral religion. You can also say Abosom Som, to serve the Abosom, but that's only limited, you know, when you say that, it's just talking about the Abosom. But if you say Nyame Som or Nyame Wa Nyame Som, it's to serve Nyame Wa Nyame, that's a fine title as well. But we decided, and our Enslavement directed us to utilize the term Nanasom specifically, because then it's full encompassing, all encompassing. You have Nana Nyame, Nana Nyamewa, the Nananom, Abosom, Nyina, all of the Abosom. Of course, they're all Nananom. Then you have the Nananom, Enslavement, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. On every level, Nana is for the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. We evoke them ritually in the context of ancestral religion. The Nananom, Abosom, Nyina, all of the Abosom are Nana, and so forth. We invoke them for that power, for them to dispense that power. We evoke the Nslavement so we can learn how to utilize that power based on clan affiliation properly. But we get empowered by the deities and we get the guidance from the Nslavement. Nana on the ancestral side, Nana on the divinity side, and Nana Nyamewa, Nana Nyame. So on every level, Nana is it. So we say Nana Som to serve Nana. That means Nyamewa, Nyame, the Abosom, and the Nananom Nslavement, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. So Nana Som is it's an all-encompassing term. So we utilize that for ancestral religion in general. That can be Akanfo Nanasom, and because we can show it, the terms go back to ancient Khanit and Kamit. Na, reduplicated Nanasom, and so forth. It's not specifically Akan. It goes back tens of thousands of years ago. So we can say Yoruba Nanasom is Yoruba ancestral religion. Eve Nanasom is Eve ancestral religion. Akanfo Nanasom is Akan ancestral religion. Basa Nanasom is Basa ancestral religion, and so forth. So instead of saying African traditional religion, we say Afuraitkait ancestral religion. The greatest ancestor or ancestress is the supreme being, and then the deities and the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors and us. So that our whole tradition is ancestral. Na meaning ancestry, but so we say that instead of African traditional religion, we say African ancestral religion, but we utilize that terminology Nanasom. So we use these terms to describe an undertaking, custom, and practice, som of ritual invocation and ritual offering, som to they who are good, beautiful, nanu, great, benevolent, nanu, and so forth. The seed people, nanu meaning seeds or grains and so forth. The abosom, the seed forces, divinities of creation, nanu, and so forth. And nana nyamewa, and Nana Nyame, which is Aminet and Amen, they who seeded all. These are the ancient conceptual and phonetic roots of the term and nature of Nanasom for Khanit, Knesset, and Kamit, meaning Nubia and Egypt and so forth, and are the roots of Afuraitkait, or African ancestral religious inheritance. all Black people and only Black people, wherever we exist in the world, are Afuraitkait Africans and share these linguistic and cultural roots. So now we have this image here of Aminet and Amen, and we have a short document just once again to corroborate that as well. In fact, let's go to the we're going to pull that document up real quick. And this is information that we brought forward. And once we began to publish this information and prove, the cosmological foundation of Akan Ancestral Religion, what we noticed over the years, we put this information out, we started putting it out, over a decade ago. There were a time when most of these Akan scholars, these Ghanaian scholars, when they were talking about the history of the Akan people and where they come from and so forth, because they were Christianized and brainwashed and so forth, every time you would Google 10 years ago and so forth and moving towards the present, every time you would Google origins of the Akan people, origins of the Akan culture and so forth, you will find multiple Akan Ghanaian scholars and so forth trying to say that the Akan people came from ancient Israel. And they were monotheistic and they believed in the one God, and Inyame is really Yame or Yahweh, which is idiotic, which is ridiculous. And they were trying to tie themselves to that fictional group of Hebrews, and you had Akan scholars writing books, pseudo scholars writing books, talking about trying to prove the Akan connection to Israel and the Israelites and Hebrewism and the Akan and Hebrews and all that stupidity. Then we started publishing, putting our information out, freely and so forth, releasing these books and so forth and doing these broadcasts. And then you began to Google Akan and Abosom and Enslavement and Akan religion. And you start seeing every time you do that, our articles, our books, our broadcasts at the top, of the rankings. Then you started seeing a shift with these Ghanaian scholars now saying, well, our oral traditions say we came from ancient Nubia. Our oral traditions say we came from ancient Kemet. And now most of them are saying, well, the Akan people came from ancient Nubia, and then they went to the ancient empire of Ghana, and then they settled in the forest belt where they are now. But prior to that, most of them were saying, or trying to make people believe that they came from ancient Israel, which there was no ancient Hebrew people, period, anyway, Black nor white. And we've proven that. But, and the same is true with Igbo and Yoruba and others trying to claim some connection to these fictional Hebrew characters because they were enslaved with the misinformation of Islam or Christianity. The ones who were quote unquote Muslim, they would say their people came from Mecca, which is ridiculous. And those who were involved in Christianity or some form of Judaism, trying to make themselves Black Jews and so forth, they would say they came from Israel. But once we started publishing, then they started changing their tune because they were forced to do so. Now, every now and then you will see some of them, they will cite one of our articles and one of our books in their publications or in their journals. So you see like the journals of psychology in Ghana, and they're talking about the Abosom and so forth. You'll see some of them have cited our articles on the Akradin Bosom, and they didn't reach out to us directly and so forth, but we would just look and see that somebody has cited our work. But it's because we were the only ones publishing on the Akradin Bosom, talking about who they are in detail, what their functions are, and how they manifest in ancient Khanit and Kamit with the same name and same function. So they had to acknowledge it. Some would try to say, well, what does we've seen some even online try to say, well, what does an African American know about the culture? We have our own scholars. But they were questioning, there was one Ghanaian putting information out about Akan, Akradin, or soul names, or Dadin, or day names, and had a website and were listing the basic attributes of the different day names, and they were citing our work. And then another Akan academic was saying, well, why are you utilizing the, work of some Afro-American Akan people in Ghana? We have our own scholars. Why are you using his work? And the other Ghanaian who was putting this page out was like, well, listen, this work is out here. You can check it out. In reality, what he's saying is he's the only one putting the information out in detail, while other individuals don't have these details. So they could not put the work out. They didn't have the details because they were not aware of these deities in ancient Kemet, what their roles are, what their functions are, and that they are the exact same divinities found in the Akan culture and language by the same name and descriptive titles. So the same is true of Nyame and Nyamewa. We showed that the name Nyame, first and foremost, is Ame, which is Amen. But then Amenet, the great mother, as you see her sitting here, is Nyamewa. And we had to show and prove that Nyamewa is the great mother and Nyame is the great father, and so forth. Nyame is not simply an Akan term. You have Nyame in Ghana, Nyambe amongst the Koko in Nigeria, Nyambe amongst the Lotsi in Zambia, Njambe, the Herero in Namibia, Nzame amongst the Fang in Gabon and Cameroon, Nzambe amongst the Bakongo, Nyamie in Ivory Coast, of course, which is Akan people, Nyamia Ama in Senegal. So from east to west to central to south, all over the continent of Afuraitkait, variations of the name Ame, you'll find all over the continent. So we never stop invoking the divinity Amen, as well as Nyamewa, the great mother. And we show that the term An means a pillar, stability of the temples. An also means eye, to turn the glance, as we saw earlier. Ari, meaning the same thing, the eye. You have Ari, the worker, the creative divinity. Ani is a title, epithet of Amen. So when you have the title of Amen as Ani, which is the pillar in the temple, this is the pillar, the various pillars that hold up, that support, stabilize the temples in ancient Kemet, the great temples, those great pillars and so forth. An or Ani, but at the same time, the term An or Ani means the eye. So those two definitions are important because An or Ani is a title or epithet of Amen. So this is why when you have the term Ari Amen, a title of Amen, Ari Amen is Ariame, Ariame, and this is where you get Oniame or Onyame and so forth, the title of the divinity. And we show once again I and so forth, a look in ancient, in the Akan language. We're showing the same thing here that we showed just a little while ago. So, Ari, Amen, Ariame, Onyame, and so forth. This is why the I is connected to Amini in Akan, Ni, Amini. So, Amen means the great or hidden one. Men also means stable, permanent, and abiding. Amen is the great, stable, permanent, and abiding, hidden being, along with Amenet. So Amen, to hide, to conceal, to be hidden, secret, mysterious. To remain, to abide, to continue, to be permanent, fixed, stable, and so forth. Then you have Amen and Amenet and so forth. But those are the roots of the name. Yet, An in the title Ani also referenced the pillars, the stability in the temples, a title of Amen. As a title, his character as the stable, permanent, hidden, Amen, pillar, stability, Ani, in creation, Ari. Note that Ari also means to create. Ari is the creative deity. So men means stable, permanent, abiding, fixed. But then An or Ani is the pillar that hoists or holds up the temple. And let's look at to give a understanding of that. So you can see it, what they're talking about. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So these, when we hear the term pillar, we just say, oh, a pillar. In Kamet, when they say the term ani, the pillar, these are the great pillars that hold up the temple, and the temple is a representation of creation, and they're holding up the heavens, holding up and stabilizing the entire creation. These are the great ani, or pillars and so forth, that stabilize the entire entity. So when we go back to the document, when we say ani, those pillars, as the title of Amen defines his character as the stable, permanent, hidden. Amen, meaning stable. Ani is a representation of the pillars that stabilize the temple, but he's the great, and she, Amen, they're the great pillars that stabilize or uphold all of creation. Everything is founded upon the great, hidden, permanent, stable, abiding beings, Amen and Amenet. And then Ari also means the creative divinity. Ari Amen is the creative, stable, permanent, and abiding divinity. Ariame. And then you also have Mem, to sink in water in the Akan language, to be sunk, swallowed up, absorbed, and so forth. Minni, to swallow, to suck up, to gulp, and so forth. So in the tree language, to sink, Minni, to swallow. In the cosmology, the sun rises in the Aptet, the east, and sets or sinks in the west. The western land is referred to as Amit, the land where the sun becomes hidden, Amin, and is Minni, swallowed. What does it mean that the sun is being swallowed? If in Akan, Minni means to swallow, Minni also means the west of the land of the setting sun. What is that referencing? Why do we have that in the Akan language? Because first, you see this image of the great mother divinity Nut, and you see the stars in her body. And then the earth divinity Geb, the earth's crust. So he's the earth's crust. The planet is Asase, Afu Asasiya, the fertile earth mother divinity, barren earth mother divinity, but the layer of the crust, upper crust, that's Geb. And then the atmosphere surrounding the earth is the, globe, sphere that surrounds the earth, the atmosphere, and you see the stars through the atmosphere. So you see Nut, the atmosphere surrounding the earth, bent over the earth and so forth, and you see the stars in her body. But you also see Nut when she's bent over. Hold on a second. She swallows the sun in the Western hemisphere. She's bent over, her face is in the west, and her womb is in the east. So she gives birth to the sun in the sky, in the atmosphere, in the east, in the Aptet, and she swallows the sun in the west, Amentet. Swallow. The term Minni in Akan means to swallow. Minni in Kamet means to swallow. It's also the land of the setting sun, the west, the Aminni or Amin land, the land of the west, where the sun or the Aten sinks, Mim in the west, Minni is swallowed, Minni, and so forth. So the entire cosmology is still contained in the language. And you have Menu, the land of the setting sun, the west. Amen, the right side, western, the west, the right side, Ament, the right eye, Ament, and so forth. Amentu, those who are in the west, meaning the deceased, one, the land of the setting sun, and so forth, the gateway to the spirit realm. And then Mint, place, abode, habitation. Mint or mini, place, abode, habitation. And Akan, Amere means place or manner, but Amere meaning place, and Akan, min or mini, meaning place, abode, habitation. And then we have Nyame, the great divinity, Nyame Wa, or Nyame Bea. It says a goddess, Nyame Ba, a goddess, Bea. These are different dialectical variants. For example, in Asante, they may say Nyame Wa or Nyame Ba. In Akwamu, they may say Nyame Ba or Nyame Bea, and so forth. But Nyame Wa or Ba or Bea, that Wa, Ba, or Bea is the feminine suffix. So Nyame Wa means a goddess. They try to reduce that when monotheism comes in to corrupt the culture and say, well, Nyame Wa just means a minor goddess. In reality, Nyame Wa means goddess. When this dictionary is being compiled in the late 1800s, 140 years ago, when they asked, what is the word for quote unquote God, they would say Nyame or Unyame. What is the word for goddess? The great goddess Nyame, the great goddess is Nyamewa. They knew what they were talking about. Then when Christianity and Islam comes in, Judaism and so forth, they tried to first diminish and say there was no great mother. There was just one great God, the monotheistic God, Nyame. Then they tried to first reduce Nyamewa to a minor female divinity, a minor female abosom, and then began to say the abosom don't exist at all, period. So that's our people being brainwashed with fake religion. But in reality, Nyamewa is the great mother, Nyame is the great God, and we have, of course, the actual picture, because she's just like Amen, it's Ari, Amen, Ariame, or Aniame, Onyame, and Ari Amenwa, which is Ari Onyame, Onyamewa, and so forth. That's Amenet, or Amenat, Ari Amenat, Ari Amenat becomes Ariame, Ariat, Ari Amenwa, or Onyamewa, and so forth, the way it's pronounced. But if we see Amen here, then of course Amenet is there. If we know Nyame is Amen, then you would have to know that she's somewhere in Akan culture, somewhere in Akan language. Even before you look in a dictionary, even before you look and search anywhere, you know first and foremost that we communicate directly with them anyway. So we know who Nyamewa is, just like we know who Nyame is because we connect, directly connect with them. But then just textually and culturally and linguistically, since we know that Amen is the great God and Amenet is the great mother, and that has always been, and when you look at the earliest religious text compositions anywhere in existence in the world, the oldest religious compositions are the Meru texts, the so-called pyramid texts. You will find Amen and Amenet together in the oldest religious writings on earth. There wasn't never a time when there was just Amen. There was never a time when there was just Amenet. There's always been Amen and Amenet in balance from the beginning. Now, so we already knew if Amen is there and Amenet is there, then she has to exist in the Akan culture if we're the same people. And all we had to do was look simply in the dictionary and you find it right there. But a brainwashed individual who's corrupted by Christianity and monotheism, they will look at Nyame and it says the great God. They'll look at Nyamewa and it'll say goddess. And they will immediately try to reduce her and say, oh, that just means a minor goddess. They can't fathom that Nyamewa originally meant goddess, meaning the great goddess, the counterpart of the great God, because they were so brainwashed. We had to bring that information out. And even you'll have we've had some Ghanaians saying, oh, there's no such thing as Nyamewa. They said that we even made the term up just to make it fit, with Nyame. And they're born and raised in Ghana or some, Ivory Coast and so forth, literally would come out of their mouths saying, we made up the term. And then we show them the Asante Fonte dictionary that's, 140 years old, and they have nothing to say because they were so brainwashed and so arrogant and, confident in their ignorance that they will put forward this notion that, well, you can't talk about Akan culture because we're from here and you're not, and you're making up terms that don't even exist. I've never heard the name Nyamewa in my life. And they haven't, because they're so brainwashed with idiocy and with white culture that it's been suppressed. But we brought the information out, and that's the end of the story. So it's nothing anybody can say that can change that. Now, and that's true with individuals here in the Western Hemisphere who have been, imitating those from the continent and bringing corruption of the ancestral religion in the Western Hemisphere and saying this is the Akan tradition, which they have not brought the Akan tradition. They've brought a corruption of the Akan tradition. And we're purifying that reality. So some individuals don't see it as something that's necessarily as serious, because many individuals just join up with some organization because they feel like it's like a church. So, they think they can just join ancestral religion like you join a church. Of course, it's based on ethnicity and the reincarnation of ancestral spirits through specific blood circles connected to specific matriclan and patriclan divinities. So you are born or incarnate into a culture, the same culture you practiced in a previous existence. You reincarnate through that same blood circle and you carry that same energy into the world with you. So you're not just joining something. But when people have that mindset of just, hey, I want to join some African religion, and somebody allows them to just come to a shrine or come to a little event and say, hey, you can be part of this like it's a church, then they're not really connected in that way. So those details about what the culture really is not important to them. But we are actually Akan, spirit genetically Akan. So our Nsamanfo would not allow us to promote the corruption of our ancestral religion, whether it's coming from brainwashed individuals in the Western Hemisphere or brainwashed individuals on the continent. They would have not allowed that to continue. So that's why we have this information out. Now, okay, so we're going to go back to that takes us back to the other portion of the Akanfo Nanasom page. So we show the reason why we use Nanasom, and of course Akanfo Nanasom. So when you hear the term Nanasom, that's a combination of two ancient terms that are still used in Akan today. But we coined that term Nanasom instead of using Nyamesom or Abosom. We use Nanasom for that purpose. So we say it's a spirit genetic inheritance incarnate within the Krane Moja, the soul and blood of all Afuraitkait people, that meaning ancestral religion is our spirit genetic inheritance. Properly defined as the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Through ritual, we incorporate the things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities necessary for us to reject in order to restore balance to our lives. So we utilize Inyamewa, Inyame, and Sheshe. And Sheshe means order or arrangement. That's the same term, Seshe and Kamit, meaning divine plan. Seshe and Kamit becomes Nsheshe in Akan, which means the arrangement. And when we say Inyamewa, Inyame, Nsheshe, that is the arrangement or order in Sheshe of the Supreme Being, divine order. Now, that's what we're talking about in that section. And we say Akanfo, Akan people manifest a unique expression of Nanasom, of ancestral religion, just like other ethnic groups have their own unique expression of ancestral religion. Yoruba, Ave, Igbo, Bakongo, Dinka, everybody has their own expression based on what area of the earth mother we moved to, how we incorporated the plant life, animal life, mineral life of that region into our bodies, and that energy of the region into our bodies, how we saw the manifestation of the abosom in those different regions. If we lived in a riverine area, we migrated to a desert area, a mountainous region, a savanna area, a forest area. The plant life, animal life, sometimes mineral life is slightly different. We consume that. It transforms our bodies, cells, and so forth. We develop a relationship with that region of the Earth Mother, and we develop certain expressions of culture and order. Diet, ritual song, ritual dance, the way we take in, energy and so forth, unique to our migrations and the blending of ancestral blood circles. The same is true as when we were forced to move to the Western Hemisphere. We were directed by the Nsamanfo to escape from the plantations, go to certain regions of the Earth Mother in the Western Hemisphere, blend ancestral blood circles, attuned to the forces in nature, the abosom, as they manifest in this unique region of the Earth Mother. So in the forest areas in North America, in the riverine areas in North America, in the mountains in North America, and so forth, the plant life, animal life, and mineral life. Certain animals exist here, like possums and bears, that don't exist on, in Ghana, Ivory Coast, and so forth. We had to learn which divinities, abosom, govern these animals, learning directly from the abosom and so forth, taking in plant life and mineral life that we weren't accustomed to, and forging a new, unique spirit genetic expression of Akan culture here in the Western Hemisphere that we pass down intergenerationally and transcarnation. Now, so that's what we're talking about in that particular section. So when we say a unique expression, the Nsamanfo have continued to guide us in this expression wherever we have migrated. So, Akanfo on the continent of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, and their followers in the Americas, the Caribbean, and Eurasia, who refused to eradicate the infection of the pseudo-religious doctrines of the whites and their offspring, which includes Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hebrewism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Vedanta, Hermeticism, Kabbalism, etc. The perverse culture of the whites and their offspring, bisexuality, homosexuality, interracial marriage, white cultural ill values, etc. They refuse to reject that, eradicate that, refuse to reject the whites and their offspring themselves. Then they perpetuate a corruption of Nanasom. The abosom and Nananom Nsamanfo ultimately withdraw their influence from such Akanfo, just as they withdraw their influence from those of our people who engage in other forms of disorder, lying, theft, child molestation, murder, rape, etc., and or embrace or ally themselves with murderers, molesters, rapists, criminals, etc. So if you persist in disorder, incorporating disorder and trying to incorporate that as part of ancestral religion, then the abosom and Nsamanfo will withdraw from you in your ritual practice. Same thing in the Yoruba tradition, the same wherever our people exist in the world. If you engage in disorder, you make yourself repulsive to the divinities who are the embodiments of order. And when you make yourself repulsive, they pull back. And you can engage in ritual all day long, but if you're persisting in disorder, you're not going to force them to participate in some disordered ritual and mindset. So now you're dealing with, if you're at a shrine for a specific abosom, orisha, voodoo, and so forth, and you're persistently pushing disorder, then that abosom will leave that shrine and you have an empty pot. And then the only spirit that will take up residence in that pot, that shrine, is a discarnate spirit of a relative or non-relative who is a disordered individual who is just as disordered or more disordered than how you are portraying and operating now. And then that spirit is the one you're communicating with. Then you'll try to pass that communication off with a disordered criminal spirit, like an alcoholic who transitioned or a crackhead who transitioned. Now you're communicating with them and calling them a deity and saying, the deity just told me something. Now, but when the abosom and Nsamanfo withdraw, we say in the absence of actual abosom deities and Nananom Nsamanfo spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, the corrupted Akan, quote unquote, Akan spirituality becomes a pseudo-religious practice, which amounts to nothing more than the evocation of the spirits of uncultivated, discarnate, deceased relatives and non-relatives who are fraudulently misrepresented as abosom or Nananom Nsamanfo. And such spirits assist, quote unquote, clients with health issues, financial issues, relationship issues, and more, just as they did when they were living in the world as physicians, therapists, counselors, salesmen, confidants, liars, criminals, etc. Yet the assistance comes with the reinforcing of anti-Afuraitkait values. And when such assistance is realized, clients are misled to believe their issues were resolved through the divine power of the deities. So that's what's been happening. So when someone is practicing corruption of ancestral religion, but they're communicating with the spirit, if you don't know any better, you think spirit communication must be divine. Every disembodied communication is not evidence of divine intervention. You can communicate with a deceased relative of an individual who was a child molester, and that spirit is communicating with you, and they can tell you what happened with your cousin who just walked down the street and got hit by a car. You say, the spirit just told me my cousin got hit by a car. Then you go down the street and you see your cousin got hit by a car. That doesn't mean the deity gave you a divine revelation. That means that discarnate deceased spirit of a child molester or alcoholic who saw the person get hit by a car simply relayed the information to you. Just like if they were alive and standing on the corner and looking and saw it happen and they yelled at you and said, hey, your cousin got hit by a car. You wouldn't say that's divine revelation. You would say, this person just told me they saw my cousin got hit by a car. But because the person is now invisible, because they're a deceased relative, and that invisible entity communicates something you didn't know, and then you go find out that it actually happened, you foolishly believe that that's coming from a divine place, and that must be a deity communicating with you. So then you start following that spirit. And then when they tell you to do criminal things and corrupt things, you're like, oh, the deity is telling me I need to do this, so maybe it's not really criminal. That's what's happening. That's how the tradition gets corrupt. And we say, in reality, uncultivated spirits, including those who misuse obayi, misnomer witchcraft, have the capacity to assist people as well as assault people. Such assistance does not carry divine sanction. It carries the perpetuation of disorder, which is in direct contradistinction to Inyame wa Inyame. So we talk about that whole notion of people being corrupted by, these perverse spirits. Now, some of this we can get into a little bit later, but we're just talking about that whole notion and how embracing white cultural values corrupts the culture. Now, then we get to some real truthstry and how we got to the point where we are now. Akanfo began to settle in the savanna and forest belt region of contemporary Ghana and Ivory Coast nearly 1,000 years ago, after having migrated from the ancient empire of Ghana, Akana. The ancient empire was located further north in the region of contemporary southeastern Mauritania and western Mali of today. That's where the ancient empire of Ghana was. One of the major reasons for the migration, mass migration, was the deterioration of the ancient empire as a result of internecine warfare amongst the inhabitants, arising from the invasion and perverse influence of foreign Muslim groups. So some people embraced that nonsense, most of our people didn't, so there was a mass migration. We moved further south and reestablished culture. And we talk about how those of us who are intelligent, we reject that fake religion, we reestablished ourselves further south when we saw the neighborhood, deteriorating. Now, we saw the degradation of society, migrated away, reestablished ourselves in the regions of what is today Ivory Coast and Ghana, in those regions. Now, we say over time, some of the disgruntled Akanfo from further north would come down and rejoin their families in the new settlements. Yet all of them had not eradicated the perverse influence of the pseudo-religion and pseudo-philosophy of the white Islamic culture. These perverse influences were thus woven into the fabric of Akan culture by a minority percentage of the population in the new settlements over the course of hundreds of years. So they'll hold on to certain things, reject certain things, but those seeds of disorder they're holding on to and passing that on to their children. And then you have a certain percentage of the population who are engaged in perverse acts, foolish ideas, and so forth within Akan culture. Now, some of the descendants of those who incorporated the perverse influences of the pseudo-religion and pseudo-philosophy of the whites exists in Ghana and Ivory Coast today as elders and elderesses. infected with white culture, who continue to perpetuate an inauthentic expression of Akan culture. This inauthentic expression is, however, promoted by these infected elders and eldresses as ancient Akan spirituality, religion, and culture. Now, then you have our people traveling to the Ivory Coast, traveling to Ghana, wanting to learn the language and the culture and the religion and so forth. They spend extended periods of time going through initiations and so forth, not knowing which elders and eldresses they're coming in contact with. Are you coming in contact with the elders and eldresses who pass down the tradition, unbroken, without profaning it? Or are you connecting with those who have incorporated elements of the corruption and passing that on? Many of them are doing that. So they're talking about, well, Inyame is the monotheistic God. He's the one God. We always believed in the one God. Pure stupidity, but some of them are teaching that. Some of them are talking about Yahweh is Nyame or Inyame, pure stupidity. Or Allah is Yahweh and so forth. We're going to get into, in the coming week and so forth, how Inyame is Amen, of course, and Yonkompon is Ra, Odumankama is Atem, Obuade is Ptah, and so forth. So you'll find that Ptah is a corruption of Buddha, or Buddha is a corruption of Ptah. Allah is a corruption of a title of Ra, and so forth. Yahweh is a corruption of Habwe, which is the title of Tahuti. So Yahweh, Allah, Buddha, these are different corruptions of three different deities. Yahweh, a corruption of Tahuti, Buddha, a corruption of Ptah, Allah, a corruption of Ra. None of them are corruptions of Amen. So Amen is the great God. Ra, Tahuti, and Ptah are three different deities that are subordinate to Amen. The whites and their offspring corrupted a title of Ra for Allah, corrupted a title of Tahuti for Yahweh, corrupted a title of Ptah, the name Ptah to Buddha. And you have some fools saying, well, it doesn't matter if you worship Allah or Yahweh or Buddha. We're all talking about the same thing. No, we're not. First of all, those are corruptions of three different deities, not the same deity. Allah and Yahweh is not the same deity. Allah is a corruption of Ra, Yahweh is a corruption of Tahuti, and Buddha is a corruption of Ptah. So it's three different deities that those are three different corruptions of, and then none of them are the Supreme Being, or even corruptions of the Supreme Being. So on every level, people talking that nonsense don't know what they're talking about. And you have people on the continent saying that, well, it's okay if you worship Yahweh or Allah, whatever, because all you're doing is worshiping the same God. We're talking about, in reality, they're worshiping the whites and their offspring through the corrupted name of a fake divinity. So our people are going to the continent, getting a corruption of the tradition, then bringing that back to America and instituting that corruption as quote unquote Akan Ancestral Religion. Now, Akanfo outside of Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, as well as those within Afuraka, Afuraitkait, who engage the process of Sankofa, return, go and grasp, and follow the guidance of our ancient Nananom Nsamanfo, evidence an authentic expression of Nanasom. It's an authentic expression because it's rooted in Nyame wa Nyame and Sheshe, divine order, and totally devoid of the pseudo-religious doctrines and perverse culture of the whites and their offspring, meaning all non-Afuraitkait individuals. It is an ancestral expression because it has been given by Nyame wa Nyame, transmitted by the Abosom, crystallized by the Nananom Nsamanfo, and received and carried within the Kran and Moja, soul and blood of our people. So, when we talk about us being forced to migrate into the Western Hemisphere, we talked about Akan Ancestral Religion being called in Suriname and South America. The Akan people call the tradition hwinti. That is from the Akan term hwinti. In Jamaica, they call the Akan Ancestral Religion Obeah. That comes from the Akan term obayi. In America, we call Akan Ancestral Religion Hoodoo. That comes from the Akan term oohn-dooh. And then, of course, we're going to get into how the term mojo in Hoodoo comes from the Akan term moja, and jack or jackball comes from the Akan term jack or japarie. And various different terms in the Hoodoo tradition are all Akan terms with the same meaning. Now, We adhere to ancestral tradition, protocol. We pass that down intergenerationally through our blood circles, intergenerationally and transcarnationally, and this is how we preserve authentic Akan ancestral religion. So Akan ancestral religion entered into North America when we were first forced over here. That's the authentic expression. What people have been bringing over here since the 60s is not the authentic expression. And we're going to get into even more detail of why that is so. So in this other portion, we talk about the Akwamu Nation in North America and so forth. We talk about, Akwamu people who are forced over here, just like Asante people, Fanti people, different Akan groups. We happen to be Akwamu and so forth. And our Akwamu ancestresses and ancestors spoke that name, Akwamu, to us at the shrine so we could hear it audibly. And then we got detailed information. We even found the origin of the term Akwamu in the Medutu and the hieroglyphs and so forth. So if we look at just to give you an example of that. We wrote a short article on that, so I just want you to see that. And we're not going to go through the whole article, but this is the origin of the name Akwamu in Khanit and Kamit. So we go through that whole term and we see Akamu or Akwamu, Ur, and so forth. So we just go through that whole piece showing the origin of the name. But just to get back to this piece, and then we're going to jump into some detail about the Enslavement. So when we say Akwamu Mine Amarukai Tifimu, the Akwamu Nation in North America is a manifestation of this reality. And the reality we're talking about is the accessibility of ancient, authentic Afuraitkait ancestral religion is replenishing every generation with every Afuraitkait individual through our evocation of our direct blood, Nananom and Samanfo, and through our invocation of our Okra, our personal abosom, and the abosom who we have inherited by blood, via matriclan and patriclan inheritance. Wherever we go in the world, we could go to Russia, we could go to China, we could go to Australia, wherever we go on Asase Afur, the Earth Mother, the abosom are still going to possess us, they're still connected to us, they're still going to inform us. And the Nananom and Samanfo are going to possess us, communicate with us, and inform us. So these are bosom who we've inherited by blood, remain connected to us wherever we are in the world, as we said, transcarnationally through successive reincarnations. So we have that permanent accessibility. And Akwamu Nation in North America, Akwamu Mine Amarukai Tifimu, is the manifestation of this reality. We're descendant of Akwamu Akan ancestresses and ancestors who still communicate with us in the Akan language. When we communicate with them, they do not speak English. When they manifest at the Nkomre, at the shrine, or through ritual, they do not speak English. And we don't speak English to them. We don't speak English to any of our Nsamafa. We're not going to project that negative, perverse language to our Akan Nsamafa who never lived here. We're also not going to communicate that perverse language to those Akan who were forced over here and were forced to speak that language. We're also not going to communicate it to those of our people who were born and raised, like our grandparents and great-grandparents and so forth, who only knew the English language. Well, after they transition and have gone to the ancestral realm, we're not going to continue to project that perverse language to them in ritual. We're only going to project the Akan language to them, as well as the language of ancient Khanit and Kamit, and they're already receiving that from their Akan relatives in Asamando anyway, so that fortifies them and so forth. So but our Akwamu Nsamafo communicated with us and communicate with us in the Akwamu dialect and have shown us and continue to show us exactly who we are. Now, we're descendant of those Akwamu Akan ancestresses and ancestors who were captured as prisoners of war, forced into enslavement, as well as those who entered the Western Hemisphere to fight for. So some were captured and some came, allowed themselves to be captured to find out what was going on, over here. They didn't know where our people were being taken. They allowed themselves to be captured, placed on the boat so they could get to the other side where their relatives are and fight for our liberation. So we've connected with those Nananom and Samafo and the Abosom we've inherited by blood and so forth. We have reestablished and renewed our connection with our Nananom and Samafo of every generation, from our most recent Nsamafo resided in the Western Hemisphere during and in the aftermath of the Mmusuo Kese, to those Nsamafo who resided in West Afuraka, Afuraitkait, and going back to our founding Abusia Kuo, our founding ancestral clans of our Nananom and Samafo in ancient Khanit, Nubia. This direct bloodline forms a circle of authority which informs the restoration of our Akanfo Nanasom within our obayi, our nation, and its purification each and every day. Moreover, this ancestral protocol is key for the cultural and religious restoration and purification of all Afuraitkait people of various ethnicities and so forth. Now, we also say our restoration of an authentic ancestral religion is not dependent on us traveling to or learning from continental Afuraitkait people. We're not, some people think they're dependent on, we'll have to get on in a plane, travel to Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, different places, and I have to go get initiated in this and that, or else I can't practice ancestral religion. As if we've been over here for 300 years and our Nsamafo never spoke to us once. So we're empty vessels and we have to travel and go get some tradition from somebody else and bring it here. That's disrespecting the hundreds of years of intergenerational transmission that has been occurring the entire time. We have Akan Ancestral Religion in our blood circles right in North America. So the only way we can restore authentic tradition is through our spiritual-genetic blood circles as it's been preserved right in the region of the Earth Mother where we stand. That's what we're doing. So now let's get into this notion of Nsamanfo. One of our publications we put forward a while back, so we can have a better understanding who and what the Nsamanfo actually are. Now, okay, just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Okay. So our ancestral tradition, we always talk about ancestral religion going back to the great ancestor and ancestress, Nyamewa and Nyame, then the Abosom, the divinities. So the great supreme being, the great divine body, then the organs, the deities, then the cells, which is plant life, animal life, mineral life, Afuraitkait, human life, and the first ancestresses and ancestors who, established creation and so forth. So we want to get into this term, Nsamanfo, but before we get into that, let's touch on one more piece real quick. And this is from our Akradin Bosom book, because we must establish our identity firmly first before we can start talking about authentic Akan cosmology. And you have some individuals as well who attempt to say, our culture is not about ancient Egypt or whatever, and that's just an African-American thing, and everything isn't about Egypt and so forth. And if people actually pay attention to what we talk about, we talk about ancient Khanit and Kamit as ancestral to our culture, and we bring it all the way through to the Hoodoo tradition and so forth, what we're practicing now, but we know what our origins are, and we can prove that. So when people are saying, well, you know, our culture has, you'll have some Ghanaians saying our culture has nothing to do with ancient Egypt and so forth. And, you know, our culture isn't dependent on Egypt in order to stand. It can stand on its own. And West African tradition can stand on its own. That's just stupidity, because they don't know their own culture. Just because they can speak a language fluently, they don't know their own truth, don't know their own cosmology, don't know their own culture. So we are bringing the accurate information. So it doesn't matter that they were born and raised on the continent, speak the language and so forth. That is meaningless. Doesn't matter if you have a PhD in linguistics or anthropology and archaeology and so forth. That is meaningless, because the deities are not sitting up in universities waiting for you to get a little certificate so they can tell you something. If you're not dealing with the actual divinities who form the world and the Nsamanfo who actually lived the tradition and the trustery, if you're neglecting all that and trying to use Eurocentric approaches to gathering information, that's meaningless. That's why we have information that's accurate, and those who spent all these years in universities have to look at the work we're putting out. Some of them angry over the fact that they have to look at the work we're putting out in order to get some clarity on what they've wasted years in universities talking about. So we're going to look at the Akradin Boson Volume 1. And when Akan people say the reason why they call themselves Akan and what that definition is, we have that corroboration as well, linguistically and cosmologically. And it's key that the cosmology is important. Some people know that, you know, there are terms all throughout Akan language and other languages on the continent that can be found in ancient Kemet, and you can look at dictionaries and find that. People have done that with Bakongo and Igbo and Wolof and various languages. You can do comparative analysis and show these terms, but when it comes to the cosmology that seals the deal and so forth, they don't really understand the cosmology, so they can't comment on it, and they therefore just think, oh, there's just some linguistic connections and that's it. When Akan people say, the reason we call ourselves Akan, because Kan means first, foremost from the beginning, meaning we were the first people on earth. Kan also means to calculate or reckon. We're the first people to engage in calculation, of measurement, of study, to replicate the patterns we see in nature and establish civilization. Kan meaning bright, brilliant, shining. We're the first to receive the light of civilization, the light of the energy of the deities through spirit possession and so forth, so we can establish civilization aligned with divine order and so forth. So Kan meaning first, foremost from the beginning. And Kan meaning to count, number, reckon, to tell. Kan meaning clear, bright, luminous, light, shining, and so forth. These three definitions. That's why our Akan people, elders and eldresses, will say we call ourselves Akan or Akani, Akanfo plural, because of these definitions. When you look in the language of ancient Khanit and Kamit, it is proven. So when they say, oh, it's not about ancient Kemet, you know, first, foremost, former, place, rank, or time, Khan, you look at the language of ancient Khanit and Kemet, again, they stuck an E in between, but it's not Kent, it's Kant. And what does that mean? In the front, the forepart, formerly, previously, advanced, the beginning. Kanti, Kantiu, which is Akani, dwellers in the south, Nubians. Khan, frontland, the south. The south is in the front, the beginning. The north is in the back, the ending. It's not Kenut, it's Kanutiu. Inland folk, peoples, tribes from the interior. Kanti, not Kenti, but Kanti, which is Kani, the Nubian frontier land in the Sudan. Kani, which is Kanti, dwellers in the south, Nubians. Then you have the term Khan, to count number or reckon, to tell. The tethered rope here, which they represent here, is thenu, but the th sound in Coptic is the ka sound, so it's not thenu, it's kanu, to count, to reckon. Just like Khan means to count, to reckon. And we show in Coptic that symbol is the ka sound and so forth. So that th, the tethered rope, is not tehnu, it's katnu, the Libyans. And the same spelling for the Libyans. So you have the quote unquote Nubians south of Kamit, Khani or Khanti, then the ones living west of the river, later becoming known as Libyans, but in their language it's called Kanu. They spell it a little bit different. The Western Nubians are called Kanu, and they spell it with the tethered rope. The Southern Nubians are called Khan or Khanti, and they spell it with the circular medud and so forth. But the spelling of the Libyans, the Kanu, translated as Libyans, with the tethered rope, and then the stick and the, twisted flask and so forth. Also is Khan, meaning to sparkle, scintillate, glitter, to shine. Khan, clear, bright, dim, not dim, light, luminous. So once again, Khan meaning shining, light, luminous, and so forth. So we have Khan to count, calculate, or reckon, Kanu, calculate, or reckon, Khani, the first, foremost, and so forth, Kanu, the Libyans, Khanitiu or Khanit, the dwellers in the south, Nubians, Kanu, Libya, which is Western. So you have Western Nubians, Southern Nubians, Kanu, Nubians, Kantu or Kantu, Nubians in the south, and so forth. So we have the corroboration there as well. And then we're going to get into a little bit more next week with regard to the people in North Afuraka, Afuraitkait, using the blue, tint on the arms and so forth, and the people of the blue veil and so forth. The Berbers, the Bribrifo, Ibibrifo, and Akan people, we call ourselves Ibibrifo. Bribri, meaning black people and so forth. The Berbers is the Bribri people. And they still live in, many of them stayed in North Afuraka, Afuraitkait, in the region of Libya. This is an ancient Libyan king and so forth, a Kanu king and so forth, dyeing the skin with the henna blue and so forth. You see his reddish brown face with the arms and legs blue, and you still see we use that blue henna dye and so forth on the skin, still in North Afuraka. Some stayed there, some continued to migrate west, established the Empire of Ghana. That's what some will say the Berbers established Ghana, but it's the Bribri-fo, the Akan people, and then some migrated further south. And there's DNA evidence that backs that up as well as linguistic. So, so let's get back to the Nsamanfo document. So it's all about our ancestry, our ancestral descent from ancient Khanit and Kamit through West Afuraka, Afuraitkait into North America. It's an ancestral religion, so we can talk about the Nsamanfo first. And we still use the same term, Samine. We were able to find Samine as a representation of ancestral spirit in the language of ancient Khanit and Kamit. And once again, proving that direct connection. And this direct connection prompted by our Nsamanfo to find and directed us to this information. We weren't looking for it, they directed us. You need to look in the hieroglyphic dictionary, you need to look at the ancient language to demonstrate the connection from ancient Khanit, Nubia first, then Kamit, into West Afuraka, Afuraitkait, and into the Western Hemisphere. Our Nsamanfo made us do that. We weren't even focused on doing that. They made us make that connection. And then as they directed us the information to prove it, we began to publish that. So, but then you need to know the cosmology to understand why the term Samine for Samanfo is the term for, a term for ancestral spirit. It could be any term. Why is Samanfo? Why is that SMN representative of an ancestral spirit? We have to look into the cosmology as it was born in ancient Khanit, Nubia and Kamit, to see why that happened. You won't get those definitions even from the Akan and West Afuraka, Afuraitkait. What is the origin of the term samai? Why do you use that? Why don't you use another term, typically, generally, for ancestral spirits? Why samai? Why not nunu? Why does it have to be samai? We have the corroboration in ancient Kemet. So we have the understanding of the value of water and images and concepts related to water. It's a riverine culture. It's found throughout the texts, symbolism, and culture of Kemet and Khanit. The sky, for example, is seen to be comprised largely of a mass of water, Keb or Kebhit, and the female divinity Kebhit governs that mass of water in the sky, the moisture in the sky, and she is the libationist goddess. So she is the one who we invoke when we're pouring libation and so forth. Now, because it's a riverine society, even the boat of the sun, you see Ra sitting inside the Aten, the sun, Aten, Atenit, the two baboon divinities praising him. But the boat of the sun, the solar disk, is sitting in a boat and sailing across the sky because the sky is seen as a mass of water, or else the boat, you wouldn't have to have a boat. You would just have the sun moving through the sky, but it has to be in a boat so the water won't put the sun out, quote unquote. So that's evidence of a riverine society. Even the solar disk, the hottest entity that we know of, has to get in a boat to sail across the sky. So rises in the Aptet, the east, sails across the sky, sets in the Ament, the west. When the sun sets in the Ament west, as we said earlier, it sinks down below the horizon. Here, the Aten is said to enter the hidden Ament, land, Ta, the underworld, the spirit world, the ancestral realm. The Aten has died, the sun has died or moved through the gate of death to now bring light to the spirit world for the 12 hours of the night. The Aten subsequently re-emerges in the Aptet, the east, at sunrise and appears above the horizon. The sun has been born or resurrected from the dead. So God's sun dies in the west and God's son is reborn or resurrected in the east and so forth. Now, the Afuraitkait human is recognized to go through the same process, not only in the context of rising in the morning, sunrise, and going to sleep at night, quote unquote sunset, or after sunset, but through our lifetimes. Our sunrise is our appearance in the world at birth. Our sunset is the transition to the spirit realm through the gate of death. That's our sunset. Here in ancient Kemet, you see these three different spellings of a specific term. When a boat arrives in its port, the boat is sailing, then it arrives in this little port or parking space, quote unquote. It arrives in the port. That's the end of the boat's journey. It can be sailing all day long, but when it arrives at the shore and arrives at its port and parks in its little space, then the boat is tied to the post, the mooring post and so forth, so the boat won't, float off into the water and crash and so forth and disappear. It gets into its port. That's the end of the journey. The inhabitants of the boat disembark from the vessel. When the boat arrives at its port, final destination at docks, inhabitants leave the boat. The same is said of the boat of the Aten, of the sun. The Aten rises above the horizon through the eastern mountain range in Kemet called Bakau. On the western horizon is the western mountain range called Menu. When the boat of the Aten arrives in the mountain range of Menu in the west, the Aten has arrived at its port. The boat docks and the inhabitants, the spirit in the boat of the sun, the Aten, leave the day boat, the Manjet boat, and then they go into the spirit world or the underworld, and they get in the Sektet boat or the Mesektet boat, which is the night boat, and then they sail in the underworld for the 12 hours of the night. So, rising of the sun and setting and so forth. So, Mena, death, the dead. Mena, death, the dead. Men, the dead one. Minau, to die, the dead one, and so forth. So you have the term men or mina, meaning to die or dead one, the dead, and death, as shown above, is the term for to arrive in port. 3 versions of the term men or mina, meaning to arrive in port, meaning to die. You have the n, a, u sound, minau, to arrive in port, and you see a little boat here as the symbol, as the determinative symbol. But then you have mina, and the determinative symbol is the body, a mummified body. You see the, beard, the braided beard here, the mummified body laying on its back. Mina, to arrive in port, to die. Mina, just the body itself, the mummified body laying on its back. Men, to arrive in port, to die. 3 different versions of that term. So when you arrive in port, when the boat arrives in port, then the inhabitants disembark from the vessel. When the boat of the sun sets in the west, that's the death going into the underworld. The sun disappears in the underworld, that's a death in the west, and they go into another boat. When we transition at the sunset of our lives, the body dies, meaning you've arrived in port. Your body is placed in its quote unquote port, which is the grave and so forth, and the inhabitant of the vessel, your spirit, disembarks from the vessel, and the boat or the vessel is bound to its port or its final resting place. So, men or mina is the title, and we see the symbol of the boat, but also the mummified body and so forth. Now, so we're looking here, it says the tears of Ra, the left eye of Ra is the moon and so forth, the right eye is the sun. The notion of the rising and setting of the sun being related to birth and death points to the fact that we have always recognized the Aten, Atenu, the suns and so forth, Ra and Right, are the creator and creatress who operate through the sun. So, for example, you have the sun is the right eye, the moon is the left eye. From the Book of Knowing the Manifestations of Ra and Overthrowing Apep, then Shu and Tefnu rejoiced from out of the inner watery mass wherein they were, and they brought to me my eye, the sun. Now after these things I gathered together my members, and I wept over them, and men and women sprang into being from the tears which came forth from my eye. In the Book of the Heavenly Cow, from the tombs of Tutankhamen, Seti and Ramesu, then Ra spoke, listen to these men and women who were created by my eye. The right eye is the sun. So we're children of the sun, came into being from the eye of Ra in both of these texts. All over Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, we have referred to ourselves in various languages as children of the sun. We thus follow the cycles of the Aten, the sun, as we set or arrive in port and make the transition via the gate of death to the spirit world. We withdraw from the physical world. The term to retire, to withdraw, to rest is saman, the active or causative version, S and MN of the term men. So you have the term men or minna, then you stick an S in front of it, which is this vertical medut. The S in the language of ancient Kemet is the causative, meaning it's making something to happen. So you have men, meaning rest or death, or to die or to rest. Samen means to make something rest, to make something die, to make something, end. So the term men meaning to die, the dead one, the causative samen means to become dead. Conceptually, it references the individual who has withdrawn from the physical world, withdrawn from the vessel, the boat, retired from the physical world. Samen, to retire, to withdraw, to rest. To the Amen, the hidden land and so forth, the determinative medut is the 2 legs walking. walking away, withdrawing, leaving, departing, disembarking, and so forth. So you have men, menat, dead things, the dead, the death cry, the wailing, and so forth. Men, many, menu, to set up a memorial, a shrine, a pavilion for the deceased, and so forth. A monument, monuments, temples, obelisks, commemorative buildings. And in Coptic, that memorial for the deceased is spelled M-A-E-I-N. So instead of men, the way they pronounce it is mine. Even the term monuments comes from min or menu, manu or monuments. The English term monuments or monuments come from menu or manu, and so forth, but it is mine in the Coptic dialect. Then you get to mine, the colossal statue of a god or a king. But this is the divinity, but you have the mummified body. You see the person standing mummified, the braided beard and so forth. Men, but in Coptic it's mine. Then you have image or statue, the mummified figure, mine or miney. Now, you have the mummified figure with the braided beard standing there. The mummified dead body, dead person standing upright. The same determinative medut is used in the version of semen, semenu. That's semenu, the image of the figure. The colossal figures or monuments or memorials made for the deceased. Mine, and then you have the image or the figure, the ancestral figure, the mummified figure representing the deceased individual. Samanu is samine, and that samine is the origin of the term samainfo or asamainfo or nsamainfo. Samanat, the cult site, the way station. Samanat, which is samando, in Akan, female mourner, and so forth. Remember, in a Coptic is mine, so in Akan we use the Coptic dialectal variant samai. Instead of samin, we say samai, and it's still asamainfo. Samain to retire, to withdraw, to rest, samanu, and so forth. So we just go through that whole piece. And then you have set amintet, which is sa mando, asamando, and so forth. That is asamando, the ancestral realm. And we have different variations of that in the text here. Sa amanto, asamando, and so forth. So Theban necropolis, the mountain necropolis on the west bank of the Nile. Necropolis meaning the polis, the polity, the city of the necro, the dead, the city of the dead, and so forth. That's the necropolis, and so forth. So you have that samain, asamando, sa amintet, and so forth, all those different things. So samain is the spirit, asamainfo is the group of people, the spirits, the deceased spirits as a collective, and so forth. And then you also have the term, certain spirits don't make it to the ancestral realm, they're just earthbound and they're just pulled in different directions and so forth. They're haunting living members and so forth. They don't have any grounding, they're pulled in different directions because they weren't grounded in divine order, they did not pass that test with Ma'at and so forth. So they're just wayward, earthbound spirits hanging around. Some attempt, as we say, to harass or haunt the living members of their family or other people who are spiritually receptive. These spirits, often translated as bad spirits, are called sasa or sesa in Akan. The term sesa is defined as loose, disorderly, deranged. That's a sasa spirit. It's a spirit that's disorderly, loose, is not grounded, not balanced, not rooted, can't give you good information and so forth, pulled in different directions, just like somebody hooked on heroin or crack cocaine and you see them eccentric and moving in different directions. They're loose, disorderly, deranged, pulled in different directions, easily influenced and so forth, not grounded, not balanced, not stable, not fixed, and so forth. That defines the behavior of such spirits, sasa. They haven't become grounded, wayward, aimless, unstable. It is relevant in this regard that the term min or mine, it means dead one or mummified one, one who's arrived in port. But the one who has arrived in port or docks, and you dock the boat, you don't just get out the boat and leave. The boat docks, and then you bind it to a mooring post, you moor it. And this is why you have the term, the same term, mina, mini, meaning to tie up a boat in port, to lead a boat into port, to tether cattle, moored, a mooring post, and so forth. So you bind the boat so it won't float out and become wayward or aimless and crash into other boats or become destroyed or become missing. You make it grounded or mina, moored. And in Coptic, money, just like more or moor and so forth, the English term moor, to moor a ship, a mooring post and all of that, all that's related. So min, meaning stable or permanent, abiding, as we saw earlier, when someone is deceased, that stable body, once it's mummified, is stable, permanent, fixed. It's not going to decay, just like amen and amenet do not decay. They're stable, permanent, and abiding, but your physical body, when it transitions, if we take you through the mummification process, the body, then it becomes stable, permanent, and abiding as well. However, the deceased individual spirit, when returning to the spirit realm, becomes mine or samine. He or she is established or stabilized, mine, grounded or moored, mine, memorialized, mine or samine, mummified, mine. To mummify mine is to make one permanent, abiding, stable, grounded. To make one samine. But like the unfastened boat that floats aimlessly away from the port of Ament, the West, the individual who does not become grounded in asamando is not called a samine, they're called sasa. The mind, the stable component, the stable element is missing. So you lose the stability from samine and you just have sa, reduplicated as sasa, the one who is not stable. The cosmology of Kemet proves why sasa and samine describe the unstable spirit and the stable spirit with regard to an ancestral spirit. You can't get that from speaking to the average Ghanaian or the average Ghanaian academic. Why does samine, why is that the origin of the term? Why is that the term for an ancestral spirit? What is the cosmological foundation for sa-m-ein, meaning ancestral spirit, as opposed to nu-nu or jojo, meaning ancestral spirit? Why does it have to be these specific terms? We have the full cosmology in our ancestral language and culture. And this is what they brought out to us here in North America. We couldn't get that from people in Ghana and Ivory Coast, so we had to go back to our Nsamanfo who established this culture, and they showed us where the information is. And then we can bring it forward, and then those in West Afuraka, Afuraitkait can re-incorporate that and relearn. So that mind has its foundation in mine or amen and amenet and so forth. Then we also notice that the term omine is the term for nation, okomfo, the people of the nation and so forth, the citizenry, the populace and so forth. It is a stable entity. So, and then we go into a little bit more detail with regard to some linguistics and so forth, but that is our foundation. And it's through those samine, those stable, permanent, abiding ancestral spirits who stayed with us and were stable with us from ancient Khanit and Kamit through West Afuraka, Afuraitkait, even into the Western Hemisphere. The reason you have all of this information, the reason you have 31 books out so far, more coming out this year, 353 broadcasts and a film, and a new film coming out, and we got 20 courses in our institution and more coming, is because of these Nsamanfo giving us the information and directing us to do so. And just like they do that with us, they do that with you, they do that with any Afuraitkait person who's receptive to their own people and not being forced into some small, box of, oh, you can't do this or you can't learn this unless you come sit up under me. That's ridiculous. Okay. All right, so I didn't realize it's a little bit after 10. Okay, so we just wanted to, in this first class, lay that foundation linguistically and cosmologically for our identity and the identity of ancient, authentic Akan ancestral, Saman ancestral religion. So we're going to get into the Abosom, pantheon of Abosom next week and some more detailed information. So if you have any questions, of course, send us an email. We're going to catch up with all of that over the next few days. And as well as all of the classes that we did this week, we'll be posting those up. So if you're in the other courses and so forth, those will be posted up this week, and we'll be having some, if we have any announcements, we'll be posting them on Facebook and everything else. So, okay, so Yerase, we thank everybody for joining in, and Yabesha Bio, we will meet again. That's up.